G'day guys, my name is Wildkard and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for subscribing and following my contents. I do appreciate it. If you would like to buy me an instant coffee, hit the join button down below. Otherwise, let's get going with today's content. It's Tuesday, it's news day. Let's look at what's been happening last week in the world of union. Now, there's a lot of news to go through today, so I'm gonna try to keep everything a little bit shorter. We have news about Rassie, Erasmus. His hearing is coming up next week. We have new Springbok jersey unveiled. We have the highest ranked? Is it ranked? Highest paid players rankings. That's what I wanted to say. So who's the top? Can you guess who's making the most money in the world of rugby? And then we have some advice from Eddie Jones. So without further ado, let's go through everything quickly and keep this video under 3 hours, okay? First up, Sprint Tour first stop, Australia versus Japan. This was quite a massive game for Australia. Away, the first game they've been playing away actually since 2019 actually. So this was something that maybe led to the performance issue with against Japan. Quade Cooper definitely starting to look like the old Quade again, throwing intercept passes, not just one intercept pass actually, but the handling errors, the clunkiness, Kurevi being injured really led to the Australia almost losing to Japan. Japan was only 4 points behind with about 4 minutes left in the game. So it was pretty close, and I thought I was gonna see history in the making on the weekend. So this was quite a bit of a nail biter. Australia scoring 5 tries, Japan only 2, but Australia missed a lot of those conversions and penalties. So Cooper was not really as in form as he had been. Something that is a big consistency issue that we really wanted to see Cooper improve. So following the match, some bad news for Australia. Kurevi and McMahon did not get the permission from their clubs from Japan to play for the Sprint Tour. So Kurevi and McMahon will be both out. Kerevi also has a bit of injury with his ankle, so he will be just recovering for his club to prepare for the launch of the new season. But the Wallabies has been in chat, has reached out to Kurtley Beale, one of the best Wallabies player ever, and we can get the 3 Musketeers back. Beale, O'Connor, and Quade all back together in the old band. So that'll be really, really cool to see, having Kurtley back in the squad again for Australia. And that is basically what's looking like it's going to happen. And Hodge is also injured on the weekend against Japan, but he's still traveling with the squad at the moment as he is getting a scan to confirm how bad the injury is. He still could potentially play later in the tournament, so they're not completely ruling him out. But at this stage, he's not looking too good. Andrew Callaway also is now moved to number 15 jersey, and Jordan Patea is most likely going to be secured at the wing position for Australia. And yes, so Hodge is injured. Cooper, there had been some talk with Cooper also not able to travel on tour due to the kids' commitments to the clubs in Japan. Kerevi and McMahon are both players who are recalled basically to the Japanese clubs. But Cooper, I think they already did some what you might call it, sweet chat with the coaches and managed to convince Cooper to stay with the Wallabies. So Cooper will be traveling for the Wallabies, and hopefully he improves that kicking and really stop throwing those cut-out passes. It would be really, really nice. In fact, I probably would like to see O'Connor starting for the Wallabies, going into the tour to just give it a bit of a shake-up. And also O'Connor is probably the starting guy that you wanted to have for the World Cup. So maybe having O'Connor leading into that starting role more and more going into the next few games will be interesting to see. It will be nice to see. So after the game Japan had with Australia, there's been some talks with Ben Gunter talking about potentially Japan joining the Rugby Championship, wanting Japan to join the Rugby Championship. Ben Gunter is a player for Japan, but he is an Aussie, so ex-Aussie, I guess. He's probably Japanese citizen now. So he was talking about his performance with Japan and how the team really needed these kind of experiences to play with big teams, to play high-level teams, to get to that next level, to get to that tier 1 status, to get to that next stage in becoming a world rugby nation. So something that Japan really wants to do. So I think that would be something that could potentially be good for Japan as well. We should talk about the structures of rugby later as well. World Rugby also been talking about introducing like a world competition as well between World Cups. We'll have to talk about that later in the news. So yeah, and then the one thing I do have a problem with what Ben was talking about is that he says we like to keep he basically says, you know, Japan plays very exciting rugby. We like to keep the ball in play, and he thinks that's what fans wants to see. Well, don't tell me what I want to see, mate. And he reckons that you and I watching this video wants to see the ball in play, okay? Non-structured rugby. What? I don't want to watch amateur rugby. Are you kidding me? No. That's not an excuse for you to not make your tackles, mate. Offloads, okay, yep. The kicking game, yep. So, and I also want to see scrummaging and lineouts. So, yeah, I'm not sure where you're reading your news, where you're getting these ideas from, but we definitely do not want to see non-structured rugby, because that would be amateur. And then Dave Rennie, after the Japanese game, talked about how we were being a bit rusty. We are a bit rusty and a bit impatient after the game. Basically talked about how we were trying maybe a bit too hard, and Japan really stepped up the game as well. And yeah, we gave them a sniff, and then they really took their opportunities. So it's one of those things where Japan really outperformed Australia. Maybe it was because Australia has been away for the first time since 2019. Maybe Japan got a lot better. Whatever the case, Australia definitely underplayed this game. Japan also gave away 17 penalties, something the coach Jamie Joseph wanted to improve as for the Japanese team. So it's definitely not a perfect performance from Japan. Plenty to improve there for Japan. I do have to say the Wallabies had really good defense. They only missed 4 tackles and no missed tackles in the second half. So something that the Wallabies could be proud of, and something that they've been working really hard to improve over the last few months, and they've definitely shown some results in this game against Japan. Now, the second big game of the weekend, USA versus the mighty All Blacks in Washington, D.C. for the 1874 Cup, the first inaugural 1874 Cup. 1874, the year that rugby was first played in the United States before the invention of NFL, by the way. So All Blacks really stomped America with 16 tries against 2. However, the 2 tries America scored against New Zealand are the first 2 tries ever the United States has scored against New Zealand. So trivia question answer: who's the guy that scored the first try against New Zealand for the United States ever? His name is Augsburger. So that's the guy. Anyway, so the All Blacks really came out quite easy. There has been a bit of Nate Augsburger. So he's the first man to scored a try against New Zealand. So they also had so All Blacks not really quite perfect. Looked like the score was gonna get absolutely blown out to like 140 points something. At the start, All Blacks was scoring more points, like 2 points per minute at the start of the game. And then they really kind of slowed down when the All Blacks reserves came on the field in the second half. In the last 20 minutes, the All Blacks really kind of slowed up despite having fresh legs on the field. So it was a little bit disappointing for Fozzie. So he did talk about that. He said it was almost like almost like the players will watch too much NBA. I thought they were playing basketball a little bit. So he's obviously talking about how the team maybe tried a bit too hard with some of those balls to try to try to get set up a try. Maybe try to be too hard and end up blowing the opportunity, so to speak. But overall, Fozzie was pretty happy about the game, the atmosphere. He thought it was pretty good. So yeah, this was big easy win for America. And heading in next week, not America, for the mighty All Blacks, heading the next week, All Blacks gonna be playing Wales. So they'll be flying from Washington DC to Old North Wales in a week and adjust to the time difference. I'm not sure how big I think that this be a little bit of time difference at least. So adjust the time difference and play Wales in Cardiff. That's gonna be a really tough game. And also a lot of criticism came out for Sam Cam. I did think in my post-match review that Sam Cam looked really rusty, and Sam Cam came out and admitted that he was rusty and not really informed. I did think that he was only on the field for like 20 minutes and he made quite a bit of like amateurish mistakes, including at one point he like kicked the ball in the rocks, almost like losing the ball. As he was going into the clean out, so it's just clinical, like the it's and the against the United States where the breakdown isn't really that contested by the United States team. For him to make a mistake like that is a little bit uncharacteristic, to say the least. The best part about this reading is obviously the comment section. Isaac said, "You should have been honest while you were in New Zealand." Speaking to Sam Cam, of course. You hopped on the play and now you say that selfish took someone else's place. So quite harsh there, mate. Quite harsh there. That's how all players get back from injury. He's not trying to get his first pack. He has 55 caps already. By the end of the tour, he'll be pretty good in shape. So I do think the one thing that he was criticized as well, Sam Cam, if I just go on a quick tangent, is the Richie McCaw factor. So a lot of people compare him to Richie McCaw, including me. I made a lot of jokes about him looking like Richie McCaw. And the thing is, when Richie comes back to the team, he's 100%. So Richie puts in a lot of time and effort when he's injured at home to make sure that when he gets back in the fold, when he gets selected for the All Blacks, because he's the captain, he's 100%. In fact, sometimes I've seen him come back better than before. So for Sam Cam to come in and not being in shape, I guess he's physically in shape, but not being 100% in his performance on the rugby field. It's not really, it's something that the New Zealand public's probably not expecting. And they probably did expect more from the All Blacks captain, because Richie McCaw was somebody who spent time out of the game to make sure that he was back better than before. So, yeah, maybe the expectation's a bit too high for Sam Cam. But I do think that as the captain, probably should have put in a bit more effort off the field before you came back on. So this criticism is somewhat correct, that Sam Cam probably should have done a bit more off the field. So anyway, so Sean Wainui passed away last week due to a very unfortunate car accident where he crashed onto a tree. So the New Zealand coroner is suggesting that this could be a suspected suicide, as there were no other vehicles involved. So he was the only vehicle that was involved. And I'm guessing, yeah. So this is just, really sad to see. Such a huge, bright future ahead of this guy. Such a huge superstar already for the Chiefs. Scoring, I think it was 5 tries against Haas. Extremely impressive. And just, yeah, if this was actually turned out to be the case, that he committed suicide, man, it's just like this. It's something that, yeah, I just think it's just somebody needs to talk to some of these guys and really keep them, in the loops so they don't go out of the way for this sort of things. Yeah, a bit rough. Anyway, let's have a look at some news from the Springboks from South Africa. So Springboks is set to play in a new jersey design. So this is going to be the new jersey for the Springboks for the spring tour. And this is supposedly designed with some African imprint, inspiration involved, iconic African imprint involved. So the way that the reason that it was designed by ASICS. So I don't mind the imprints and everything, but I do mind the color. This should be dark green. I don't know what this is. This is like dark blue and lime green. This should be dark green. Like the design is okay. I don't mind it. The color should be dark green. So I don't know why this is in this weird color. This, has to be. This doesn't look like a professional rugby team jersey, to be honest. I don't want to see this jersey. I don't think of the Springboks, to be honest. So let me know what you guys think, especially the Springboks fans that watches my channel. This is a jersey for you, but I personally think that the color needs to be dark green, and the photo doesn't look like it's dark green. So let me know what you think about the design. And also the always smiling, always happy Rassie Erasmus is set to go on his hearing next week, and he will be traveling on tour with the Springboks to the Northern Hemisphere teams to face his critics, face his enemies with the big grinning smiley face that we all love and enjoy. He's the only one that smiles even when he loses. So it's just like the smiliest coach in the world, right? And he just never gets mad, always smiling. Even when he's complaining about the referee, he's still smiling. So yeah, so he will be traveling, and it's been revealed that but he won't be running water anymore. So the biggest biggest water boy, the world's most famous water boy, lost his job as a water boy, who will be he'll be kept in captivity in the coach's box, and it's apparently due to the fact that they're no longer allowing 3 water boys on the field as they did for the Lions tour. So there are only two water boys is allowed, and Rassie will just not be in a third spot for Rassie to run on without any water, essentially. So he will be in the coaching box for the spring tour, but he will be there, and that will be something to look forward to seeing. And also the World Rugby, the what do you call it? The hearing for Rassie Erasmus is coming up next week, and World Rugby has leaked a document suggesting that the Rassie Erasmus pointed out 26 errors, and 23 of 26 was correct. And this was confirmed by a leak, I guess, from World Rugby, reported in the South African media. And there are some interesting things coming out of this one. So basically the premise going into the hearing next week is that Rassie Erasmus made the video public. He made a public critique video of Nick Barry and his assistant referees in the second Lions Test series game. In the first Lions Test series game, I beg your pardon, I'm sorry. And this was not supposed to go public. Like, you shouldn't go public because the World Rugby don't want this to become like a publicly, don't want the referees to be, exposed to too much public criticism. And if they are doing something wrong, they want to privately solve these sort of things, because the referees already get a lot of public criticism from the fans, and there's no need to fuel that fire with, between the coaches as well. It's just not professional, not something the sport wants. So usually, if there is an issue, you will send the report to the referee privately. But Rassie was frustrated. He sent it out, claiming that he tried to speak to Nick and he didn't get a timely response. Therefore, he sent these out to basically show his grievances. And Rassie denies that he made the video public, despite the fact that in the video, he said he takes responsibility for making the video, and essentially suggesting that he was responsible for making the video public, because he did say that at the end of the video, he was responsible for the video. And he said something like, if you don't think this, he did say something like, if you don't think this should go out to the media, it's up to you to decide. Like, he was talking to someone that was recording the video. But he did say he'd take responsibility for making the video. So whoever leaked it. So yeah, so the premise is that someone leaked the video, and whoever leaked it World Rugby has to prove that it was not someone Rassie Erasmus had direct contact that leaked it. So the suggesting is that there's a source who leaked it to Twitter is from Australia. They're on to me. Oh my god! Like, nobody watches Union Australia anymore. Like, there's no one. Like, what? They're on to me. They're on to me, guys. Oh no. Oh, I've got to lock my doors. Someone from Australia licked this. So apparently that's the rumor. They're on to me, guys. Okay. And so basically, yeah, the World Rugby has to prove that I leaked the video, which they can't, to prove. And also they said that the source was Jaco Johan. And despite the fact that Rassie Erasmus, his name is Johan Erasmus, and obviously the South African coach is Jack Niambla, or however you say his last name. I actually can't say his last name properly. So Jax and Johan, two first names of the two coaches, Jaco Johan, but still, it's a Twitter handle. I could have made it up. They're on to me. Australia, like, who watches Rugby Australia and has the, like seriously, like, I don't, like, who is this guy? If this guy is actually Aussie, I want to meet him. If Jaco Johan is actually Australian, I want to meet him. Because, like, what? I mean, come on. It's like, I don't think any Australian woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch South Africa play the British and Irish Lions. And then... Okay, anyway. So yeah. So he could be facing fine, suspension, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. Next, Springbok fly half Morne Steyn retires from Test Rugby. So Morne Steyn, he was with the squad, with the Springboks, traveling to Australia. And I think like last week or the week before, he was called back into the Bulls camp due to some injuries at the Bulls in Europe. So he like left the Springbok, what do you call it, bubble to join the Bulls in Europe. So I thought that was really weird. It was like the news basically said something like emergency, calling him back to fill potential like injury or something. So he's left, and now he's basically come out and said, you know what, I don't enjoy sitting on the bench for the Springboks, because he wanted to play some rugby on the field before the end of his career. So he basically says he's got a year or two left in his career. He'd rather spend some time playing for the Bulls than sitting on the sideline. So he really wants to just like enjoy the rugby instead of being like putting under such a high pressure for the Springboks to be on the bench and, you know, to quickly jump in and be ready and, you know, and perform at the very high test levels if he was caught up. And it's just really, I can't understand that. Something that he doesn't want to do anymore at his tender age of 38. So yeah, Morne Steyn, one of the greatest, I guess you could say, of all time for the Springboks, has retired from the Springboks. There you go. Scotland has an M42-man squad again in the sprint tour against Australia and South Africa. So some of the big name has been called into Scotland. So this is something I want to hear what you guys think. So Wales were not able to call in some of the players because their commitments to English rugby clubs, but Scotland is able to call in their players from England. For example, you know, who was it? Their English players. Is Exeter? I'm not sure. I'm actually not too familiar with all. Yeah, Harlequins. That's definitely the English team. So I don't know why Wales are not able to get English players, but Scotland's seemingly able to get pretty much everybody they wanted. So Stuart Hogg is playing, Dwan van der Merwe is playing, Ali Price, Finn Russell, many to believe the best fly half in the world. So these guys really got better since 2019 after losing to Japan. Xander Fagerson, a big prop for the Scotland team. Jamie Ritchie, I think he was injured. Maybe he was injured for the Lions tour, but he wasn't selected Lions. So I thought Jamie Ritchie was pretty impressive for Scotland, and Hamish Watson, the rabid loose forward for Scotland. So we shall see how this goes. This will be played in Edinburgh, and this will be a big game for Australia to test themselves away in the Northerners' home. Yeah, so this will be a big game for Australia. I really look forward to seeing this one. So obviously Wales, like I just mentioned, not able to get their key players, despite Scotland clearly able to get players from the English Premiership teams. So yeah, so Wales coming out. Ken Owen has been talking about, you know, really trying to step up against the All Blacks despite their injury issues and not able to get all their players from the England-based teams. So I don't know. So first up, the reason they can't get it because World Rugby's official test window does not include the sprint tour. So it's World Rugby's fault that the players technically not allowed to play, or the club don't have to give permission for players to play because they've set the test window too short. So yeah, I don't know what World Rugby's doing. Did they even watch rugby? I don't know. Maybe I don't know. What I don't know. Maybe they thought this was football. Maybe they thought they were managing soccer or something. I don't know. So apparently they just made, yeah. So, but anyway, still that doesn't explain the fact that Scotland is having English-based players seemingly available to them. And also, I know these English-based clubs like to pretend that they run a football team, a soccer team. But, you know, if the players in your team has never been in the All Blacks, they're just a bunch of losers, mate. A bunch of nobodies and a bunch of losers. You're just paying money for a bunch of losers. And yeah, so it's a bit disappointing, but this is already sold out at Millennium Stadium apparently, and huge game for Wales to prove. Last time Wales beat New Zealand is 1953. That's, Jesus Christ, that's almost 70 years ago, 68 years ago. Man, the people who watched that were not even alive anymore. Most people there. Jesus God. And also, just a bit of history I was reading about New Zealand traveling to sprint tour. The first ever sprint tour, they called the original All Blacks, was basically New Zealand going to England, to Scotland, Wales, maybe Ireland as well, and I think France as well. But basically they did the sprint tour, and the original All Blacks that made the All Blacks famous destroyed everybody on tour except for Wales. They lost to Wales 3-0. Like, literally, it was just like a craziest report I've ever read. Apparently, there was some referee, like, discussions before the game. Nobody was happy with the referee that was appointed. And then New Zealand suspected that the referee was going to be biased. So they ended up with a Scottish referee. And then eventually the referee was still not good enough. Resulted in New Zealand losing 0-3. So New Zealand flogged everybody. Like, big flogging over every other team. And then lost to Wales 0-3. And but back then, scoring a try was 3 points. Kicking a conversion was 2. So there was just one converted try for Wales. And that's it. And it was pretty like a big deal at New Zealand when they traveled. Apparently, the King of England was in attendance in the English team. And it was like 100,000 people in England watched that live in the stadium. But yeah, this is a pretty big like game, historically speaking, in Wales versus New Zealand in Cardiff. So not having your players for this monumental occasion is probably just, yeah, is dumb. I think all the players should just quit and play for the national team. Now, that would be better for your career, to be honest. So you'll make more money later. So yeah, so anyway, so in France, Antoine Dupont has been appointed to the captain over Charles Ollivon, who's injured for a while now. So he won't be back till next year due to the knee injury. So yeah, that's pretty bad injury to be out for so long. And then Italy names Michele Lamaro to be their captain. There was a picture here, but I've blocked it. But anyway, yeah, so he was no longer there. I think if I just... Anyway, so I don't know who he is. You tell me if you know him. Just a bit of news. Maya Nonu is going to return to San Diego Legion to play for Major League Rugby in America. We saw him play a little bit in the domestic league in New Zealand. He's 39 years of age, so one of the greatest of all time. He's still at it for rugby. Approaching 40. Maybe he can be like Tom Brady, play till he's like 42, 43. Will be interesting to see. So World Rugby looks to revive Nations Championship concept. This is basically like a tiered system between the nations to kind of play every year in a multi-tier national competition, essentially. So they had this idea a couple of years back, but the idea was to have different divisions and having teams being relegated. And this apparently didn't go well for the Six Nation rugby teams because, you know, obviously if England gets relegated, nobody's going to be happy. And it's going to be a big financial blow for the Six Nation TV rights. So they're basically not able to do that as a result. But now the talks are back on the table. They're going to have a big talk next month about it, as there is a big issue with rugby at the moment with teams like the USA, Japan, all these upcoming teams don't have people to play against. Essentially, they have no competition. And that has really led to like a decay in their performance. Not because they don't have the talent or the resources to grow, they just don't have any opportunity to grow. So this has led to the decay of the team, decay of the players, so leading them to, you know, not really able to develop as a nation. For you know, it's just not good for the overall well-being of rugby as a sport international globally. So there's been some talks, different systems, but yeah. So we shall see how that goes. I can't wait for Australia to get relegated. It will be quite good video for me to look forward to making. As the Kobe Careful is added to Moana Pacifica team for next year's Super 12 competition alongside Christian Leleafano. And so yeah, so there's something about Eddie Jones. So apparently Eddie Jones was talking to Alex Sanderson, who's the club director for Saracens, for sales, I believe. So he's like a new director. He's having trouble with the team. And he had a chat with Eddie Jones about how he motivates himself. So apparently Eddie Jones' advice is, he took advice from this other guy called Ray. What's his name? Christian Ray? What's his first name? But anyway, this guy who owns Saracens, Ray is the guy who owns Saracens. Oh, Nigel Ray. He owns Saracens and he's like a multi-million billionaire or whatever. And how he motivates himself is that he pretends that he's bankrupt all the time. And he works every day like he's bankrupt. So yeah, you know, it's like that saying, like, you know, just pretend today is the last day you're alive and then live the day to its full potential. So that's Eddie Jones' advice for you. Just, if you're struggling to get motivated, just pretend you're bankrupt. And then you will be a billionaire and owns an English Premiership rugby team in no time. And now, I know this is something that you've all been waiting for. The rich list, the rugby rich list, highest paid rugby player in 2021. This is why you clicked on the video. We're finally at the end of it. Let's have a look. Obviously not these two. Fozzie probably gets like 10 million a year. And Sam Whitelock, he's probably getting more than that, but they're not going to disclose that. Not allowed to disclose that. But yeah, Fozzie definitely gets like 10 million, right? Like 10, 20 million at least as the head coach of All Blacks, surely. So anyways, at number 9, Owen Farrell at 750,000 pounds. That is low. I thought Owen would have been number 1, to be honest. Like, Owen, the captain of England, I thought he would be number 1. Especially, you know, get a job with your dad, mate, and he'll probably pay you more money. So yeah, he was dropped down. Yeah, so he's dropped down. Maybe the salary breach and the relegation had he drop a bit of his earnings, maybe. But yeah, that's quite low. And number 9, also Michael Hooper. Man, he deserved more. He 1.38 million Australian. He definitely deserves more than that. 750,000 pounds or 1.38 million Australian. I thought Pocock was getting like, isn't Israel Folau getting like 2 million a year? This is poor, man. He should be getting more. Pay him more money, Rugby Australia. Mike Hooper, the best number 7 in the world. You kidding me? Although 7 is a position that generally gets paid in the lower end in the whole team. If you look at the paid structure of the whole team, the highest paid players are generally, surprisingly, the locks, the props, And then the number 10s, that's like the highest paid players generally. And then it trickles down all the way to like the loose forwards, like number 7, and hookers being paid the lowest in the team. And like on average, right? Not by, not in absolute terms. There are obviously people with outliers, but on average, that's the case. So number 7, we have Bowden, the black sheep Barrett, the worst Barrett in the family, 1.5 million New Zealand dollars. That's worth about slightly more than Hooper. So Bowden playing a bit overseas in Japan, earning quite a bit of money. So yeah, Bowden Barrett number 7. I thought Bowden was making more than this, to be honest. I thought he'd be making more. So Geordie Barrett should be getting more money now, because if his brother's getting 1.5, he should be getting 2, because Geordie Barrett is everything Bowden is, but better, right? And then we have a number 7, Virmi Vakatawa, for playing in France. So he is a New Zealand boy, Fijian race, a French star. So he apparently gets paid £780,000. I'm actually not too familiar with this guy. Like I said, if you don't play international rugby, you kind of just sunk cost at your club. And then we have number 6, Mauro Itoje, England. So again, second rower, like I said, Mauro Itoje, he also plays for Saracens, also playing for England national team. His second rower, he gets paid more than Owen Farrell. Like I said, exactly what I mentioned. The highest paid players are like second rowers instead of the number 10s, as you would expect. Owen Farrell, you might think, should be getting paid more than Itoje, considering they're literally in the same club. And Owen is the 10 and the captain of the England rugby. But Mauro gets more than England, more than Owen, an extra £50,000. So Mauro will be driving a better car than Owen, I suspect. And then number 4 position, Cheslin Kobe, the cyborg. He should be getting more than £850,000. He should be getting like £5 million. He's a freak. He's not even human. He definitely should get more than that. Get him more money. Who is his, Cheslin should call your agent and ask for more money. Like literally the greatest player ever in the history of rugby. How can he only be 4th? Kidding me? What a joke. What a joke. So Cheslin Kobe is number 4. And number 4 also equal with £850,000. Finn Russell for Scotland. So yeah, Finn Russell is the best 10 in the northern teams, supposedly. So I can see that. I can see how he's getting up there. He's definitely making more than Owen Farrell. He's definitely... A lot of people think that he's better than... He's the best 10 in Europe right now. So yeah, number 4, I can see him worth every penny there. Number 3, the most hated guy in World Rugby, Ibn Laitzabeth. And number 3, South African, plays for Toulon. Like I said, second rowers make all the money. Like, you underestimate how important the locks are. Like, being able to secure your lineouts, being able to win those lineouts, being able to steady the scrums, and being able to just be an absolute... on breakdowns is worth a lot of money. And in Ibn Isabeth's circumstance, being able to take breaks whenever you want, it's also added bonus for your team. So Ibn Isabeth, £900,000. Jesus, that's getting up there. And number 1 spot, we have a tie. First up, we have Charles Puitao. Puitao. How do you say it? Piatao? Charles Piatao. Piatao, I think it's pronounced Piatao. So I don't even know this guy very well. He played for the All Blacks before the 2015 Rugby World Cup. So like 2012, 2011 or something. So he only played 9 tests apparently for the All Blacks, and then he left because he wasn't selected for the Rugby World Cup squad for 2015. So he left. And now he's making most money in the world at £1 million in Bristol Bears. Again, he doesn't play international rugby. As far as I'm concerned, I can't even pronounce his name. So what a waste of money. What a waste of money. Anyway, and finally at number 1, the World Cup winning number 10 himself, the guy who can't kick a goal when you really need him to, Andre Pollard. Number 1, Montpellier in France, £1 million. Probably, yeah, I think Pollard is probably overpaid. Like 70% goal kicking isn't really world class. Isn't already worth £1 million a year? Or £1 million a year? Probably overpaid. But yeah, good on you, Andre, for being the biggest, most earning, I mean, what do you call it? For the highest earner in World Rugby today. Congratulations. Cheslin Kobe probably should be there. Even Isabeth probably should be there. But 100 Polar, highest paid for the Springboks. Anyway, 40-minute video. I said I didn't want it to go this long, but there's so much news to go through. Anyway, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. Yada, 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 yada. See you later. Bye.